Hello, welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin, and I have a special guest today. His name is also Erin from St. Pete Calisthenics.
Thank you, Erin.
That's always a fun thing to say around the gym. So I'm curious about your experience and like what brought you to open such an amazing place because it's huge. I've heard that St. Pete Calisthenics is the biggest calisthenics um, collection of sort of rigs and equipment in the nation. Is that true?
It is currently. We'll see how long it lasts, but I know calisthenics is on the rise, so we'll see how long it stays that way. But currently, yes, we are the largest calisthenics facility, I think, in the world, actually.
In the world?
Mhm.
Wow, okay. Yeah, that's awesome. So, for those of you who don't know about Erin, Erin is a co-owner of St. Pete Calisthenics and with his partner Tyler.
Mhm.
And they're both lovely people. And when I moved to St. Pete, I was looking for a place to put my energy into that I really believed in. And I walked in the doors there and I started taking classes with Katie, who I also want to have on the podcast. And she is I just remember being in class with her. She's like, okay, so now we're going to walk into the nervous system of our future desired state. And I was like, oh, I like this place.
That sounds like right up her alley. Yep, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
think I
love that.
quote her a lot. So tell us a little bit about your journey as far as like healing, fitness, and sort of like how St. Pete Calisthenics came to be, like how that came into your vision.
Absolutely. So, where to start?
Broad, right?
So, my undergraduate degree initially was athletic training. So at 18 years old, I applied for this program that was very selective. They only took 24 people per year
Oh, wow.
into this program. So it was a whole interview process. I had to go through a panel interview and a whole bunch of different prerequisites. Got into the program, and it was fully curated around rehabilitation programs. This
Mm.
was at Florida State University. So at the time, it was the number one football school. We had Jameis Winston as our quarterback, and that
Wow.
was good years to be a part of it. Um, but I just started with a lens of orthopedic assessment and injury prevention. My very first semester, I was already taking orthopedic injury assessment along with kinesiology and a number of different other classes called like therapeutic modalities.
Mm.
So all the biooptimization equipment we have in the building, I was kind of aware of it because of this program. We dabbled with some of these pieces of equipment that weren't really known to the public, but like athletic departments and universities had them, and military. Those are the first people that usually get those brand new pieces of technology to start trying out. So I got a little familiar with some of these things, how the body heals, different ways to help the body heal faster, and
Mm.
then the certain vulnerable aspects in fitness that you should avoid when you're trying to come back from injury and then
Right.
avoid it in the first place.
Yeah.
There's certain mechanics that you can make sure that you're applying to make sure that you're avoiding the wear and tear on the joints that tend to be familiar with people who are really into training for certain competitions, like the High Rocks is the more recent one, but CrossFit before that, and
Mm.
some of these elements in the fitness realm that are a little more focused on how hard can you push and how quick can you do it.
Yeah, it seems to appeal to mass audiences as far as like no pain, no gain, and push, push, push until you have pain and you cannot push. And so it delights me to know that I knew some of this, but like interviewing you, I get to learn more, and like the interest in the therapeutics is very compassionate, and it's much more I feel like intimate work because you have to look at the whole picture
Mhm.
to get the therapeutics, like whereas pushing is there's almost sometimes like not disassociation but a hyper focus and not taking into account some of the other aspects of the body, mind and spirit that need to come into play. So I want to ask you, like your proclivity towards that, is that because you had injuries, you're around injuries, or it was just like a natural, like I'm interested in this and it just kind of gelled?
I think in my athletic days in my soccer years, like high school and a little before, I did have a number of like ankle sprains and things like that. So like
Mm.
I realized I had some laxity in my ankles that was going to be a problem later. And as I was doing these orthopedic focused classes and learning about exercise science and some of these things, I was like, I'm going to have to be very cautious of keeping strong ankles so that I don't end up breaking them and having worse problems
Right,
than
yeah.
just, laxity. And that's kind of where our balance class came from. I realized getting into the foot collective post COVID that there's ways to make foot training a little more engaging and fun. So we
Mm.
have a lot of drills that we do in that balance class on a balance beam with a hacky sack and some other tools that.
I took that with my dad. Actually, my father came to visit, and I always bring him to where I'm working out at the time, and it's different gyms all the time. But he came to your place, and he took part in that class, and I watched him. There were some things that were quite a bit challenging for him,
Mhm.
but it everybody really was engaged, and it also the way that you design the classes and the I guess culture of St. Pete Calisthenics is very community driven. That you feel like you have a bunch of friends, like you're in class, sometimes class is very serious, go go go, it's on your own. But at St. Pete Calisthenics, it's more like everyone's kind of working out together, encouraging each other, smiling, high fives. Like it's such a great community feel. And that class is also so different and interesting. Like it's so much different than a lot of the fitness classes, exercise classes that you go to, and you have fun, and then your body really starts to change.
It's big, and it's a lot of the neurological adaptations that you get with being a balance forward class. It's predominantly focused on getting your brain to understand how to activate things a certain way. And I think people get a lot of flashbacks to childhood being on balance beams. So I tend to see the
Mm.
most smiles and laughter in that class also, which is therapeutic on its own.
Yeah, yeah, and speaking of therapeutics, you nailed it. It's more than just the body, the structure. It's the emotional intelligence. It's all the things at once. And I commend you because I think that that's difficult to encapsulate in one place, and you're doing
There's a neurological component pretty much to every class
it.
we have. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's something I saw with addressing most of my clients dealing with pains, whether it was shoulders, ankles, knees, hips, anything in between. I had to help everybody with their feet. And it was a very much a root cause of so many people's problems. That kinetic chain theory, all
Hmm.
of the things talk to each other up the chain. And if something downstream isn't operating like it should, the next thing up is going to have to compensate in a way that it's not supposed to. And then it just.
Yeah, it goes up the whole chain. The myofascial webbing is just like it's under the skin, it's around the organs, it's around the tissue, right? And it's
Yeah.
like psychodynamic. It's responds to like stress and injury, of course. And when you have these like maladaptations, which your body's just doing its best, um, things can get stuck. Adhesions with the body work that I do, it's like interesting because. We kind of mirror each other a little bit. I kind of like get into people's bodies in a certain way, and you get into people's bodies in a different way. But we can both kind of look at the people in front of us as sacred and train them from that place, like from a heart driven place. So
Very much. And almost all of my clients have realized that I don't just focus on training your muscles. There's conversations that get your mindset involved. We talk about nervous system regulation. We talk about all these different elements that really make the whole system recover better and have a
mm,
better response to whatever your goals in training are.
mm, mm. So maybe you can talk just a little bit. So we have the balance class and the balance and the foot. Are they combined right now? Because I know we had a sort of consolidation and then expansion of classes.
Yep, the balance is the one that has the foot
The foot.
driven
Okay.
focus. And then animal flow kind of takes it into the whole body
Hmm.
mobility. Um,
How did you find animal flow? That's because when I went there, obviously as a yogi, I was like, what is all that? It looked like the kind of the martial arts that I did and some of the more intense yoga stuff that I did, but it was so beautifully fluid. I remember walking up and I think you were having class outside when I first came to St. Pete Calisthenics, and I was like, what's that? Like it's very pretty,
mhm.
so but very fierce.
Yeah, I had one coach that I worked with at the very first gym that I was working at outside of getting my undergrad. And he was fortunate to be at a gym where they were unrolling it for some of the first times, and he had a few moves that he showed us that were like very helpful with spine decompression and rotator cuff focus. So me
Mm-hmm.
dealing with mostly clients that are dealing with pain, I realized that those were very helpful for them. Used that in my programming for a few years, and then I started realizing I was like, that's the thing that they don't mind doing, and
Mm.
it seems to help them the most.
Yeah.
So I was encouraged to go dive into it a little more fully. I learned how to do all the moves, got certified to teach it, and then once the calisthenics direction showed itself, Animal Flow was very much a calisthenics derivative. It's just
Yeah.
your body weight.
Yep.
It's just more mobility and fluid motion focused rather than static holds and tricks on the bar and pull ups and dips and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Um,
So it's rooted in therapeutics.
it is. I had
That's
realized that
really
it was
cool.
such a benefit for the shoulders, being able to have strong rotation ability, whether it was through depression or elevation or a horizontal push. You had to have stability through the entire transition, and that's
Mm.
really what bulletproofed your shoulders.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because it's one of the most vulnerable joints, is what I've found, and to have balanced action in the shoulder, then people feel more emotionally stable too, because we can kind of tie everything in. And like I said, the movements are very fluid. It's very beautiful. If you've never heard of Animal Flow, check it out. We do have it at St. Pete Calisthenics. But even just like looking up a video, you're probably like, wow. So if you're local, then you'll have to come in.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the Biooptimization Institute, because we house that.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe just some of the, I do want to talk also about some of the training methods with therapeutics, for example, like the rice bucket. I was so happy I came up, he had this rice bucket, and one of his clients was just kind of like, moving her wrist inside of the rice. And I thought, it reminded me of like Jean Claude Van Damme and like all
Oh
the
yeah.
martial artists like punching it though, I think. And it reminded me of like Muay Thai. I think some of the fighters do that to rehab ankles. So um, tell me a little bit about like those aspects, because again, I'm seeing a theme weave throughout here of, you wanted to be in service to people. You saw the great need, and there was interest and maybe a proclivity towards it. And it's like a lot of these programs that we have at the gym really are rooted in therapeutics, which I think that sometimes people see calisthenics and they'll see someone like Katie, which she's amazing, floating up into handstands, but
Mm-hmm.
like that's really not what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can get there, but it's like these therapeutics, it is so healing. So,
Yeah, and that's a big element that for sure separates what most people think of calisthenics and what we want to present in our facility. My entire focus is on helping people move better so that they can feel better and not feel limited throughout the rest of their life. We have decades and decades left. If we're already having a hard time getting on and off the ground, like how much worse is it going to continue to get? If
yeah,
you're not taking action, it's only going to continue to get worse.
that's right.
And I started seeing people in the 6 to 10 years that I was training people after college. I was realizing that clients were coming to me earlier and earlier with these issues. They weren't just the 70 and 80-year-olds anymore that I was training. It was like I was getting people in their 40s and 50s that are already having double knee replacements, had a hip replacement, and they're already
Mm-hmm.
needing a second one. And I'm like, dude, you're not 50 yet. You're looking at more surgeries. Like there's more out there to not end up in that situation. So
Yeah, we can do better. It's always I don't know, when I hear people say, "Oh yeah, I turned 35 and now my back hurts all the time." I'm like, "Why is that?" Just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal, or
right.
certainly not healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
at my studio in Bradenton, Thrive Yoga and Fitness, we have elder population there more so, and they're moving beautifully, is because they practice movement and moving their muscles in different therapeutic ways. And it's really like, if you have the sense to take care of yourself, it really does pay off in like little incremental ways. But those incremental ways add up. Like Erin said, if it's already difficult for you to get down and up from the floor, it's only going to get worse unless you do something about it. So So the Biooptimization Institute, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was something that was universe manifested. It almost felt like it's something that I was a little familiar with, and we were already up and running doing our first classes on the courtyard. And then we had a student in class come over to me, and she was like, I just told my friend about you guys. I was halfway through this mace class and I had to text him right away, but he needs to meet you and talk about what he does. And this was Trip of the Biooptimization Institute. He showed up 20 minutes later, came over
Wow.
and spoke with me right after that class ended. And he told me about all these different modalities that he was putting together in this protocol. And I was a little familiar with most of them. And it sounded really exciting what he was trying to do with that. So it worked out to where we ended up being able to get them a spot in the facility and start helping run through this protocol and fine tune it a little bit to help get people the best speedy type of recovery ability, because these modalities all take like 20 minutes at a time, but
Right.
some of them can be combined. So what he's done is combined a few of them in a way where in 55 minutes you get through like 5 or 6 different healing modalities that are all aimed at cellular recovery, mitochondria
Mm,
efficiency,
yeah.
and VO2 max oxygenation therapy.
Mm,
So all of these will help improve blood flow, help your healing process if you're healing from something, but also can help your athletic performance because it can also improve your VO2 max. So if you're an endurance athlete or if you're someone who needs to maintain the ability to access energy fast, like a wide receiver in the fourth quarter, you would want to have that edge to where you don't tire out as much. So your body
mm.
being as efficient as it can be is definitely advantageous. So
I love the way that you describe that because that for me is motivating because I mean who doesn't want to have optimal performance and there's different things that are offered at St. P Calisthenics that can really help to optimize. I mean it's really kind of like a one-stop shop.
that was our goal. We realized that it all needed to be in one place because
Yeah,
time is money and people are more and more conscious of that, as especially right now inflation's crazy, so people are starting to have to be very mindful of where they're putting their money.
sure.
So having it all in one spot is going to make it the most time efficient for people but also the most cost efficient because they can have just one membership that
That's right.
houses almost all of the healing things that they could need. Time might dictate whether they lean one direction or another. If they're recovering, maybe they're going to be in the bio-op room a little bit more, but maybe they're also training for a marathon now where they're going to want to be in the bio-op room for that. And
Mm,
then their training may dictate a little bit of maybe they want to play with some aerial soon and they can go try some classes with Circuit Club, which we've had some members starting to get confident enough with their
crossover.
abilities to want to go try those classes, which is awesome.
That
So
is.
it just kind of shows that calisthenics really can help build that foundation for some of these more intriguing arts that you might be a little nervous to go try. We had one that she does pole fitness a lot, and she's like the girls in her class are super jealous at how fast she's improving on some of her pole skills. And she's like, well, you just need to come to see what's happening at St. P Calisthenics because I'm just training 2 days a week there. And
Yeah.
now my pole fitness is accelerating that much faster.
It,
So
it really is. And, from a person who went from a student there to working there, it felt like play. I was coming like, I mean, not even like overkilling it. I was coming maybe like 3 days a week and I just loved the vibe. It felt good. And I was just drawn to it. I've done very like strict lineage type, training with yoga, with martial arts. And the place that I'm at in my life, I'm 42, like, I wanted to have a little bit more play, but it was amazing how it doesn't, if you like to move your body, but like you don't like traditional sort of orders barked at you, like you want to have a more exploratory time with yourself, then St. P Calisthenics might really be for you. And I remember, just training for a couple of months. And then after a couple of months, I just started noticing like all of the movements in yoga improving, like
yeah,
the chaturanga, which that's like the first Sanskrit word everybody learns besides namaste because they're awful. But my shoulders started feeling better. And then I noticed that like the shape of my body started changing, like my composition, people started, commenting like in a very nice way. I was like, oh, I'll take it. So, and a recent thing that I started doing, I was resistant to it at first because I needed emotional support, is the cold plunge and the fire sauna.
Yeah.
Did you guys have, because that's very special, especially because it's wood fired, but I really love the contrast of it. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of it
Yeah.
and maybe your experience?
Absolutely. So the contrast therapy was a big component we definitely wanted to make sure we had. And the fire component just makes it that much better because it allows us to get to the heat temperatures where you actually get the maximal benefits of all the heat shock proteins and all the recovery elements that that has for cleansing the system. Um,
Mm,
so you need the heat to be a little above 160, 165 to start getting those benefits. And a lot of the electric or infrared saunas stop at the 150, 155 range. So that is a really huge perk. And then the cold plunge adds a lot of nervous system regulation, but then it goes into the vasodilation and constriction. When you go between the sauna and the plunge, you get this expansion and contraction, very
mhm,
similar to what happens with the oxygenation in the BioOp protocol, right? When you're
mm,
in hypoxia or breathing the mountain air, your body has to vasodilate because it's trying to find the oxygen in the body that's stored because it's
right.
not getting as much through the air anymore. And then when he
Mm,
floods you with the oxygen from the hyperbaric side of things, you get this really rich oxygen to these very dilated capillaries. So it's going to help speed up the recovery in those areas that maybe we're not getting good blood flow originally.
mm,
And that's where the contrast therapy has an element of the same thing. It's making the pressure go up and down, up and down. So it's
mm,
pushing this healing process to those tissues that maybe weren't getting them before. So
mm,
for people who are sedentary, especially, they're not getting that blood flow difference because they're not working out. They're not doing anything that's going to be strenuous and push
right.
blood to the areas of the body that aren't getting easy blood supply. And things that need to heal, tendons, ligaments, cartilage, those don't have good blood supply. Like that's a fact. So you have to encourage it to get there, whether you're doing blood flow restriction training or you're utilizing voodoo floss, which we help teach people about the benefits and the uh, reasons that you would need to do the voodoo floss versus something like a massage gun. So we really want to help. Again, it's all back to the therapeutic spark to this whole thing. Was I'm finding all these tools to help people get over these aches and pains, but I'm hearing so many people just hit a dead end because they do physical therapy, have no success.
If I had a nickel for every time,
Um,
I've
they
heard that.
they just get focused on one specific joint and they don't
Yeah.
really help you learn how to use your whole body with that new healed area. So it just starts to degrade again.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
objectification of like your knee is not just your knee. There's a whole chain of events that are happening in and
mhm,
around it.
yes. So the physical therapists we work with in the Return to Play program, I've kind of vetted specifically to make sure that they're looking at it globally, and that means that they're most of them are not taking insurance. Right, they're outside of the insurance model because the insurance model is the reason that they were restrained to just looking at your knee. And I was like, all right, well, that system's gotta change. So the only way is you're gonna have to do cash pay. So I encourage you find a cash pay PT if you really want to get around it, and then come see me after that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
um, but then you mentioned the play element.
Yeah,
That's why we call it return to play. We
yeah.
want the focus to be on helping you be able to do the thing that excites you, whether it's play pickleball, which is really popular right now, or just be able to play with your kids or grandkids, all the way up to just finding ways to explore your body that allow your system to do all this detox, which if you know anything about the lymph system, this is another element in the biooptimization room. We have a lymphatic drainage suit, but the natural way that your body would drain and push the lymph through the system is movement.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting movement on a daily basis, your lymph system is just kind of stagnant. So if
Yeah.
you notice you get lots of swollen lymph nodes or you get
Mm-hmm.
sick often, that probably means you're harboring lots of toxins in that system and you're not doing enough to push it through. So your body's just going to continually leak out these antigens that you're going to continually get sick
Yeah, the
with.
reactive food allergies, all these things, compartmentalized stress, and then not to mention like the mental and emotional distortions that would happen within. And, one thing I wanted to mention about the cold plunge and the sauna, just from my personal experience, is I was going through something in my life, and I needed just my meditation was not as sharp as I would have liked it to be. I was like, I need something. I need something. I know the answers are all around. And so I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go in that cold plunge. And Jake was my emotional support buddy for the first 4 times.
Nice.
And I went into the water, and it was like I couldn't think about anything else. And because I was going through something that was a bit painful at the time, it snapped me into presence. It snapped me into my body, and all I could focus on was just my breath, because I felt the coldness of the water, and it just stopped the chattering mind. And so beyond the physiological physical benefits, the mental and emotional benefits that I started getting from that, and then I started incorporating the sauna, and I started feeling almost like the fascia in my body was becoming like hot, liquidy. And from doing body work for so long, when the fascia like releases, memories release, pain, grief, trauma, all this stuff. So, and there's many cultures that have like sweat lodges. So I experienced a little bit of that also in the sauna. So that's like an added benefit that I've experienced, and you've
100%.
probably heard some stories.
Absolutely. I think it's a very well-rounded practice that hits a lot of different areas. So whether you find it for one or the other, you will definitely notice more than one aspect improve.
Yeah, yeah.
Heat tolerance is another good one. Living in Florida,
Oh.
we're 90 degrees and super humid outside. So if you get used to 175 degrees and higher, 90 degrees doesn't feel quite so
You're like,
bad.
no
So
problem, piece of cake. Yeah.
so little side benefit if you live in Florida. Still hit the sauna even though it's hot outside. It'll make the daily temperature not quite so
Yeah,
bad.
and another so beauty benefit I noticed is like my skin started getting really soft. So I imagine that's, purging of
hmm
toxins or
hmm
like hydrating myself. I'm not sure exactly.
It's that regular detox element, and
Hmm.
when your body's not fighting all the toxins in there anymore, because you've gotten to a maintenance point. Maybe you've sweat out most of those original issues, and as long as you're still eating fairly clean, then it will hopefully remain that way and continue to get better.
So, so we have some programs. So we have the Return to Play program, and it really is play. Like that is built into the culture of St. Pete Calisthenics. And in fact, when you walk up to the facility outside, it says "Welcome to the Playground." And I really love the logo. It's probably too small on your shirt for everyone to see it there, but it's this like monkey ape guy and then a leaf, and it has like a lightness to it. So you have the Return to Play program. You have some animal flow trainings that you do. What are some other things that are going on at St. Pete Calisthenics?
Yeah, so we do host events pretty often, whether they're talks from experts in their field. The oxygen system I was referring to earlier, he was the most recent speaker we had. He came and talked about all the benefits of the intermittent hypoxia training and all of his aero system unique differentiators. And we plan to have different experts from the biooptimization world come in, different healers from our world where it's a little more fascia related or movement related. So speaker series, wellness fairs and markets. We do host even events like music events, comedy shows. So we want there to be a good social element to the building as well. So you're not just working out with your members and friends, but you get to do some things that maybe encourage more traditional fun that sometimes aren't always focused on alcohol.
Yeah.
We might have a couple of events where there's a bar, but some of the events are just sober encouraged, and there
Mm.
might be some uh, THC beverages for those who might want to partake in those, which are getting a little popular now. So just finding alternatives to offer where it hits all those different crowds. So there's something that you can do on a Friday night that maybe isn't just go out to the bar, but you can come
Yeah.
move a little bit, do your contrast therapy, and
Hmm.
hang out.
It's fun. There was a birthday party that was at
Mm-hmm.
St. Pete Cali, and that was fun. There was, a little bit of music, dancing, the cold plunge, sauna, and then we did some acro yoga. So it's really like for someone who loves to move and I'm just curious about life. If you're that kind of person, this place is for you. And like Erin said, the social element is really lovely because being a conscious person, sometimes your circle gets a little bit smaller. You want to be surrounded by people who are, paying attention, who are aware, who are working on themselves, and you really house a lot of activities that help that kind of community to continue their explorations. I want to also add that there might be a yoga teacher training coming to St. Pete Calisthenics. I talked with Tyler about it. I won't talk about it too much here, but
Cool.
if you're interested in the yoga teacher training, that could be on the menu as well. So, yeah, thank you so much for spending some time talking about St. Pete Calisthenics. I
Absolutely.
absolutely love your place, your vision, and I'm excited to have Tyler on the podcast to talk about her expertise and her area and how she supports the vision as well. So, how can people find you online?
So my Instagram is Primal Arts Erin, and then the Calisthenics page is just St. Pete Calisthenics, all one word on Instagram, and the website would be stpetecali.com.
Yes, and we'll have that all in the show notes, links included. So, well, thank you so much, Erin, for your time today. I appreciate it so much. What a wonderful conversation, then getting to know you. And then, like, it just makes me love your place even more. And so, if you're in and around St. Pete, or even if you're visiting, come stop by St. Pete Calisthenics. It's really such an interesting, wonderful experience. The people there are lovely, and you'll feel invited, you'll feel included, and hopefully, you get a good workout.